security and defense management scholar and has specialized in statecraft. He's currently the executive director of Center for Peace Building and Socioeconomic Resources Development, CSPED. He graduated from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, in 1987, with a master's degree, Science in International Relations, study of Nigerian military statecraft. His first degree is a Bachelor in Political Science, 1985, and he is writing on the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, also from the University of Benin in Nigeria. He has over 3 decades of local and international working experience for governmental and non-governmental sectors. He has a strong knack for research, program planning, and project management, broadcasting, monitoring, and evaluation, preventive peace building, democracy, and good governance, and the whole works. If I want to fully introduce Mr. Fagbemi, he will not leave here. I want to say that he is here, and I'm glad that it's a great privilege to have him this afternoon. He is highly, he's well sought out after as a conference speaker. And so we've been dealing with Nigeria understanding and preventing a failed state, in quotation. And there is no other time to discuss this topic than now, very, very topical. So I'm going to welcome Elder Kunle Fagbemi, to delve into this subject, and then we have opportunity to pass comments or ask questions in the chat room. Please we'll be glad if you can mute your speaker, a microphone, as well as video if it's possible, so that we can have a very seamless interaction. After this, we have a Q&A. Let's go straight into the discussion of today as I welcome Elder Kunle Fagbemi. Join me in welcoming to Touchstone Business Sustainability Series 47. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's indeed a great pleasure to join and to discuss this very important topic, more so that it has come at a time when the Nigerian state is currently dealing with some of the major dynamics of human existence, of nation building, particularly mindful of the fact that there is a report from the international community which is troubling the operators of the Nigerian state, that is the incumbent administration at the federal level. The most important thing I want to bring to the table, and I wish to emphasize for us at this forum, is that each time you come across a theme like this, or you come across a report wherein the attempt by the authors is to help you mirror the reality, you must never look at it from a negative perspective, because the idea and the concept we are dealing with actually is an attempt by the authors, who usually are members of a school of thought that deals with early warning. So highlighting and identifying the problems are designed to solve the problems in the real sense of it, to give an opportunity for us to take a look at how to proceed with the dynamics of the transitioning from the problem to solution. But unfortunately, most state actors often see this intervention as an attempt that is antithetical to them, and they always want to query such a thing. The most important thing that we need to understand, particularly when you're talking about failed state, it is part of what is used by the fragile states indicators that will help you to capture, particularly on 4 pillars: assessing the level of cohesion in that geopolitical entity that you are dealing with. Second, you want to take a look at the economic dynamics. You're interested in taking a look at the political dynamics and then the social, wherein you'll be dealing with a gamut of issues in terms of the demography, in terms of the dynamics of how do you see the citizens, are they living their lives normally, or you have had some issues that has led to
Sorry,
refugee
Elder.
camps?
Sorry, Elder, your Kunle Fagbemi.
Yes.
Can you put your slide in presentation mode so that we can
Oh,
eliminate the ones at the side? We can focus on your main slide. Fantastic. Thank you. This is
okay.
great. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Basically, the idea of what we're trying to do is to bring to the attention through this meeting that we need to have an understanding of the term failed state so that we do not see it in the negative perspective that operators of the Nigerian state are trying to paint it. It's an opportunity to receive an early warning. Usually, the fragile state indicators try to emphasize that, okay, there is a need for you to have cohesion, and you look at the economic dynamics. When you're talking about the cohesion of the state, you are looking at what is the dynamics pertaining to the security apparatus, the security and defense management architecture, the service delivery in that sector, how factionalized the system is in that country. For example, in Nigeria today, we can see that we are truly factionalized, and you are beginning to have group grievances being expressed by so many groups. When you look at IPOP, you look at the Fulani, you look at the Yorubas, you look at the Hausas, you look at the Basas, you look at all those people in the Nigerian state, they are expressing one grievance or the other. Then when you take a look at the economic, you will begin to see that there is some level of decline that we are experiencing that has led to series of loans, series of grants and aids, and then you have uneven economic development. And our human rights dynamics is very unfortunate as we are today. The social, I've talked about the demographic pressures that we're having. You already having some that have to do with the unfortunate climate change dynamics that we're having, the issue of violence and the security breaches caused by insurgency in the Northeast, for which we now have a number of refugees and IDPs. And then you have external intervention. You already know that we are having some people that are encroaching on our territorial integrity under the guise of transhumans. They are pastoralists, we have been made to understand and believe. And then at the political level, you are beginning to have state legitimacy crisis, for which we have public services not being properly rendered. And then you have human rights and rule of law dysfunctionality. For example, it's only yesterday, after about 2 months plus about 3 weeks, that the judicial services have been off because of the strike in that sector. The legitimacy of the Nigerian state is being questioned and queried significantly, in the sense that we now have a situation wherein even the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, is being challenged very seriously, that some group have already put a force majeure on the Constitution and saying they do not want it. It therefore means that it is only those states that belong to the United Nations, the states that are considered important, that these kind of studies are done on. Basically, when you look at the classification, there are 4 kinds of nation states once you do the classification. The first is the one that is very strong. And the strong states are usually where you have everything is virile, the political stability the functionality of the institutions are healthy, you have healthy partisan political relations, and everything is working as provided for. Unfortunately, you have the weak that are laden with challenges, but exercising some resilience with potentials to navigate out of those challenges. Before you now have the failed and the collapse. The failed, in the real sense of it, is to underscore the fact that things have really gone bad. Usually, when you're dealing with this kind of reports, there are two dynamics that are usually reflected upon when you are measuring. You are either measuring for description or for classification or for both. In that sense, you'll be dealing with quantitative to qualitative spectrums. This does not say that they are not mutually exclusive, but they are inclusive. The quantitative discourse and the qualitative discourse are all embedded in what you are considering. And then you have the second leg, which is the subjective versus the objective continuum. In this kind of studies and reporting, you are bringing everything into the basket onto the table so that you be in a position to truly understand what exactly is happening in that state. It is not the kind of thing that we are very used to and familiar with in the Nigerian state, wherein it is binary. It is either yes or no. In this kind of discourse early warning, it is always multivariate, it is always multidimensional, multi-tiered, multidisciplinary. And it is not just one organization that publishes the reports that are usually used, and the various kind of indexes and indicators that are embedded and brought to bear to determine your level, either at the cohesion discourse parameter variate level, either at the social, either at the economic or the political. There is what is called the state fragility index. There is another one called the Freedom House Index. There is the Human Development Index, which is the United Nations Development Program standard that is used. And then there's the World Bank Governance Indicators. And then you now have the Fragile States Index. You equally have that which is called the Conflict Assessment System tool. Then the Corruption Perception Index, then the Human Rights Index, and the Transparency Index, before you even have the Foreign Policy Ranking. It is all these that are brought as part of the multivariate analytic discourse, so that we can now see that it is not just one report that you are dealing with. It's a level of good mix that is trying to ensure that you have the opportunity to be given an early warning. So it is not the binary thing that we're used to in Nigeria, and it is not an attempt to undermine. It is usually an attempt to help the system to become more responsive and alert and doing the proactive responses, planning, and deployment that will steer the country away from the problem. So it is not an opportunity to come and grandstand or come to position yourself for perquisites, which is the unfortunate thing. And this I want to make very clear so that those who are joining us and are listening to us will understand that it is not a time for political correctness. It's a time for us to look at what exactly we are dealing with. Because when you now start defining the failed state, the failed state is a political body that has disintegrated to a point where basic conditions and responsibility of a sovereign government no longer function properly. And you'll discover that we have started experiencing some elements of that, and that is where you will have the police, rather than label based on the legal and policy frameworks. They look for an escapist label, like take for instance on the nomadic herdsmen related security challenges. They just say farmer herders clash. There's nothing like farmer herders clash. You will discover that some people are carrying their animals and then they trespass into somebody's land. That is trespass. It is provided for in both the criminal code and the penal code. When they do trespass, they end up encroaching. If they violate and they destroy things, then it becomes arson. When they assault individuals, particularly female, it may end up having sexual component, and that will be classified as rape. The other component of these nomadic herdsmen related security challenges that people have heard government officials speak about has to do with some people coming from one other country out there and coming into the country. They can only come in to the country with their animals under the ECOWAS or the AU protocol of transhumance. But the transhumance protocol still expects you to comply with some rules and regulations at the border of entry so that your animals will be registered. They want to know where you're coming from. Take, for instance, if you're coming from Mali, did you pass through Ghana? Did you pass through Republic of Togo, Benin, or you pass through Niger Republic? They want to know. You pass through Burkina Faso. How many animals did you leave Mali with? If you left one with 1,000, did you sell any in transit? Did any of them die? Then the veterinary officials will do the quarantine things. So it is not an absolute transhumance protocol per se. Once all these things are not functioning properly, they begin to rate you as failing. When you begin to see a situation where children are abducted from schools, kidnapping is on the increase, people can no longer travel safely in terms of interstate or intrastate, that is moving from one town to the other without having problems. If the government loses legitimacy, it is performing its functions in such a manner that they do not see it as being functional. And we've already started seeing that to the extent that nearly every Nigerian is operating with the following. One, you have private power supply in your residence, you have private water supply system in your residence. So all these things, and then you now have your security arrangement in your property, you have a neighborhood watch system that you belong to, and finally you begin to see dysfunctionality in terms of statutory public institutions that are due to systemic and structural and human idiosyncratic challenges. When a nation begins to exhibit all these kind of weaknesses that introduces possibility of total government collapse because of poor governance services delivery, which are usually characterized by multiple citizens' deviancy, which we are seeing because of breaches in law, order, security, and agitations, then that state is already failing. According to the political theories that govern this, particularly that of Max Weber, you will discover that a state is defined as maintaining a monopoly on the legitimate use of physical force within its borders. But unfortunately, you now have Boko Haram, you already have, whether you want to accept that they are the ones responsible or not, you have IPOB, you have NASOB, you have every manner of militia, the Niger Delta Vigilance Group. The fact that all these exist and the state is already acknowledging this, and that is why you hear the National Security Advisor, you'll have the service chiefs or the Inspector General of Police now start talking about that the firepower, the armory, or the firearms at the possession of non-state actors is such that are much more sophisticated and things like that. Typically, the term means that the state has been rendered ineffective and is not able to enforce its laws uniformly or provide basic goods and services to its citizens. Once you cannot do it uniformly, and you'll now discover that everybody is complaining that the way and manner the operation in the Northeast has been ongoing is not the same way that they are having it in the Southeast. And when you look at even the way they name and label the operations, the military operations, in the Northeast, you have something like Lafia Dole, that is peace at all costs. But when you come to the Southeast, you start having Operation Python Dance, Crocodile Smile. These are not necessarily friendly nomenclature. And once the uniformity is lacking, and you cannot provide basic goods and services to citizens because of high crime rates, insurgency, extreme political corruption, and impenetrable and ineffective bureaucracy and judicial ineffectiveness. For crying out loud, one arm of the three arms of government was off track for a quarter of a year. And you know the implications of that. The characteristics of a failed state are that there's a loss of control of its territory, and you have heard before now that Boko Haram, insurgents, bandits are hoisting their flags, and they are able to use physical force, and you are having an erosion of legitimate authority to make collective decisions. A classical example in Kaduna State, you discover that when the Greenfield University students were abducted, they were kept for months. The government that negotiated in Katsina, in Zamfara, did not negotiate in Kaduna State. And as such, the citizens, the parents of those abducted students, ended up paying, and they were so mad that even after they finished paying and they released their children and wards to them, unfortunately, the state now wanted to come and shine and take the glory, and they said no. The inability to provide public services, all of us are familiar with that the water, sanitation, health indicators of the Nigerian state is weak. Open defecation has just become something that we are now discussing and trying to eradicate. The inability to interact with other states as a full member of the international community. For now, we are still enjoying some opportunities of support. The moment you have all this in place, then some degree of failure has occurred. And when you start having refugees, and we already have so many internal displaced persons camps within Nigeria, and you have sharp economic decline and military intervention all around, particularly we must note that out of 36 states of the Federation, we have military operations involved in internal security dynamics in 34. You can imagine if you were to truly do the analysis in terms of quantitative, what you'll be getting. The intervention that we have just brought out is just to help us appreciate the fact that even though you have four kinds of nations, and the Nigerian state has now been pushed to the level where we can safely and scientifically be said to be a failed state. All hope is not lost. What is being said to us is that the intensity of our green light has dimmed, and if we are not too careful, the next stage will be that we are going to go into the red. And usually to go into the red is so easy. And for crying out loud, when you look at the international correlates of war, and you look at how you class the intensity of conflicts vis-a-vis the number of deaths, that have occurred in a particular jurisdiction. For example, in terms of casualty between January and May to 2021, this year alone, we have already recorded a total of 3,000 deaths. When you move to the next level and you want to start discussing in terms of some of the particular jurisdiction that you will be interested in bringing to the fore, a good example will be to look at the Northeast. And then let us take a look at the subset of the education sector. According to the United Nations Children's Fund and the European Union report, 2,295 teachers have been killed and 1,400 schools destroyed in the Northeast. So anyone who is looking at all this data will see clearly that we truly and genuinely have a major crisis on our hands. We already have some other things that we must never forget. What exactly is the level of the cohesion? How factionalized are the elites within the Nigerian state? The elites in the Nigerian state are so factionalized. The level of grievances being expressed, be it from the Yoruba to the Igbo to the Kalabari in the Niger Delta, the Jaw, the Chekiri, and you cross over to the Middle Belt, the North Central on the Plateau, the Tiv, the Jukun. Or you are moving further and you are talking to the Borno, the Bogu people, or you are talking to the Bassa, or you are talking to the Hausa, or you are talking to the Fulani. Each one has some complaint or the other that they are dealing with. So if the level of cohesion has gotten to the level where people are now saying restructure, when people discovered that they were not being listened to when they were asking for restructuring, they now started saying we need self-determination. We will want an arrangement where we will be in a position to control that which is under our dynamics. The next one that is clear at the economic level, some years back, particularly by 2016, we were being made to understand that we were entering recession. One of the ministers told us that recession was just a word. Unfortunately, we have continued in that trajectory without meaningful opportunities that we needed to have for the tides to change. We ended up with the unfortunate pandemic last year and the shutdown of the economy globally. And we were on the receiving end to the extent that people started breaking into warehouses to retrieve palliatives. When you are dealing with the indicators, you begin to realize that part of what is discovered as being key is that such geopolitical structure will now be reliant on international development partners for grants and aids. And for crying out loud, even the elections in Nigeria are supported by United Nations, EU, USAID. So you cannot safely say that you are not receiving those aids. Secondly, you are receiving aids to support your agriculture, you are receiving aids to support your health sector, and unfortunately, again, we are taking loans upon loans to the extent that you have over $42 billion loans hanging on the Nigerian state, 36 already collected and due, and then they are interested in acquiring another 6, which I think they've already tidied up in the real sense of it. Then you have human flight and brain drain. You can discover that recently the discussion has been you must have option B. And what is the option B? Like we used to hear some years back, Andrew is checking out. So if all these things are there, and you are having the painful experience of failing public services and a situation where the human rights of the citizenry are being breached. Yesterday, we had the most unfortunate one between the federal government simply because of the tweet of the incumbent president that was brought down. We ended up having the Twitter suspended in Nigeria, and I laugh. I laugh in the sense that Nigerian state was challenging an establishment, and this is at the part of the economic macro, micro political economics consideration level. It is clear that Twitter took an informed decision. They did their risk assessment properly before they located their hub and headquarters in West Africa, in Accra, Ghana, instead of bringing it to Nigeria, even though we have much more users in Nigeria. But the fact that the human rights regime in Nigeria was not safe for them, they did not come here. They went to Ghana. Now, let us take a look at the net worth value of Twitter. Twitter is $50 billion. So if you want to look at it from an interesting political economic angle, it means that Twitter can say, we want to buy off all the debts of the Nigerian state so that we can manage you properly. So you don't go to battle with such a person or institution like that. It's very unfortunate. In rounding off, because we want to discuss the solution, all these reports and highlighting of these problems are designed to solve the problems and challenges or issues that we are dealing with. So we plead with those in authority and those of us who are friends to some of them to kindly enlighten them that these reports are not negative the way they are perceiving the interventions or the solutions being suggested. They are things that we must put in place that will help us to correct a number of the issues. So in terms of the way forward, the first one is that the government of the Nigerian state will need to revamp the governance information management system by stopping all ongoing strategic distraction, desensitization of distortion and selective amnesia that is going on as to facts and figures. When issues are on ground, let us address them holistically, don't sweep under the carpet. Number two is that we must move away from the unbiased and begin to work with unbiased compliance and enforcement of legal and policy frameworks. If you are using a particular way of enforcing your compliance in Northwest, when you get to Southwest, don't change it. When you get to Southeast, do not change it. We must ensure that all manner of labor-related and or trade industrial dynamics and issues that are pending must be resolved quickly so that the productive capacity of the Nigerian state can be re-engineered. There are some policies that are currently in place that we will need to change. The issue of the constitutional review that is ongoing, the political class, the actors must be willing to do the needful to ensure that we get to the level where we will have true reflection of the wishes, aspirations, and desires of Nigerians. Nigerians are currently saying, wait a minute, we do not like the way the federal system is being operated. We want a true federalism. We want to do away with this unitary control and command structure that you are having. So let us go back to the 63 Constitution or give us a brand new constitution. The truth of it is that within the ambits of the enabling constitution that has put this government in place, they can only amend the 1999 constitution. And for some of us, we will plead with them that they do the correct thing and begin with section 2 and section 9 so that they can buy another round of citizens' confidence for us to move in the right direction, remove some of the things that are currently on the exclusive list and take them to the concurrent list and residual list, particularly as it relates to security and law enforcement. The next aspect that we will need to work on is the issue of ensuring that our institutions truly and genuinely work the way they're expected to work. No more should we be having a situation where rather than the police intervene the way they expected to intervene, they start scatting, moving around. Most of the issues that we are dealing with currently that the military are involved in are supposed to be policing function. And we should stop playing lip service to all these things. And then they must be responsive to citizens' requests. On the part of citizens, and since this is a business seminar, yes, we want the citizens to begin to exhibit a great deal of patriotism. We will call on the religious, traditional leaders and leaders of the organized private sector to become much more excited with mentorship, mentoring of the youth in terms of enabling people to have skill sets that will allow them to be involved in a number of the issues that will become productive engagement, and where you already have the youth involved in some few things, we need to reappraise the way things are going so that we can make the required progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elder Kunle. Fagbemi, thank you. That was a wonderful time. You have done quite a whole lot in giving us an understanding of the four kind of faith state index, as well as an understanding of the four kind of nations: the strong, the weak, the failed, and the collapse. And then you also look at the issue of measurement, that we move away from idea of binary to a multivariate type of analysis in looking at how all of this. And then you then went down to give us all that we need to know about definition of a faith state and how the Nigerian state is at one level or the other in that particular continuum. Now, I know that there will be interventions as well as questions and answers, but I'd like to start by saying, from your analysis, on a scale of 10, where will you say, based on your analysis that is multivariate, on a scale of 10, where will you say the Nigerian state is? Where are we in terms of the failed state index or analysis? That would be my first reaction. Then the second one, before we start interventions and questions and comment, is that I believe in free speech. I believe in democracy. And that's the reason why I feel the Nigerian state is a sovereign state. And the Nigerian state can say, look, this is what we want, and this is what we don't want. Do you think the government has done anything totally out of place by saying we want to ban Twitter? You see, because if we almost get to the point of saying might is right in your analysis, because the Twitter is a house of cash in dollars, I don't think that is enough a moral right for them to apply double standards in their analysis of who is saying what and what will be considered to, to put the country at risk. I appreciate all the nuances of the analysis of saying, hey, this is the president of the nation and we don't want a genocide in the making. We don't want all of this. So those are the two reactions. And then I can come back and I will want, while you answer that, there are people on this platform that I've seen that I will be glad if you can make intervention. One of them is my dear brother, Ike Azoa Karewe, a barrister, who used to be the vice president of Nigerian Bar Association, a man very steeped in law and steeped in human rights. I'll be glad if you can unmute yourself after he has responded to this and intervene. And then we also look at analyzing the way forward. Thank you very much. Elder Fagbemi, can you respond to those two?
Thank you very much. One of the major things that we need to get straight is that early warning reports are usually called policy briefs. Policy briefs are expected to provide some form of guidance. The guidance that will allow us to quickly reflect on issues, and once we start reflecting on those issues, we can make adjustments. As such, when you are privileged to have institutions from friendly nations that share such reports with you, mind you, all the other indicative reports that I noted earlier on, are being shared with the Nigerian state, including the one from World Bank, those from United Nations, those from institutions like IMF, from African Development Bank. All these things are contained in those documents that they share with the Nigerian state, even before they sign loans and grants. There's nothing in this particular report that is strange. The Transparency International issues reports that talks about all these things. This one is just saying to you, wait a minute, if you guys are not careful, because if we were to use the spectrum of 1 to 10 for strong, as a strong nation, spectrum of 1 to 10, when we look at you, you have moved away from being strong and you are clearly a weak nation that is actually oscillating, and now you are closer to collapsing than you are close to even exhibiting a failed state, and that is at the stage that they raised the alarm. Last year, COVID-19 provided us an opportunity to appreciate, and that is why you will discover that when I shared with us earlier on the slide, I was able to show that there is an arrow that is bi-directional underneath the classification of those states, from strong to collapsed. Each nation exhibits at different times elements of weakness, elements of failure. Last year, we had COVID-19 pandemic that ravaged the United States and clearly displayed to us that the healthcare facility, healthcare services delivery of the United States was challenged. So you cannot rate United States as completely a strong nation when it comes to handling the pandemic, and a president had to lose an election in the United States because of the poor handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. When you move out and you look at Italy, you look at so many of these other countries, it's the same story. So when you come back to Nigeria and you have the opportunity that we exhibit a great deal of resilience. Fortunately enough, all of us were mad when we heard Melinda Gates say, oh, people are going to be dying like chicken and fowl on the streets. But the resilient spirit in Africa and the ability to tap into some local medicament ended up helping us out. And when you look at the data, you'll discover that we are still fortunate. So we are fortunate that we will always exhibit resilience, but the resilience can only be activated when we take heed and we listen to the early warning and we do not disparage it. We appreciate as scientists that the country is governed as a sovereign entity. But the moment you keep on receiving loans the way we have been receiving, the moment we keep on pleading with international development partners that give us loans, give us this, and they discover that each time you collect these loans, you were expected to have utilized the loan for one particular purpose, and that is an infrastructural development. A sizable chunk of it has been filtered away through corruption. If it has been filtered away through corruption, then we have a crisis on our hands. That what are you going to use to pay back? What is the collateral if they were to draw down and demand for their loans? Come to think of it, some of the infrastructural development that we say we are trying to utilize the loans for, they are yet to be fully developed. I'll give you a good example. Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, Second Niger Bridge. When you now look at the speed at which they are transcending and trying to activate the Kano Maradi rail line, all these things, how will they generate the returns when people can no longer travel safely? The Abuja Kaduna rail lines and the Lokoja Itape suffered just recently, including some Chinese nationals being caught where they were destroying and removing some of the rail tracks. So if you are dealing with such a situation, the people that are giving you loans are interested in alerting you that things are not as interesting as you've already thought they are, and you are going to have problems at the end of the day. And currently, the issue of the value-added tax at the level of the discourse of fiscal federalism is coming out. They will say you destroy the bottles of beer that are taken to Kano on the excuse and guise of you wanting to comply with Sharia or enforce Sharia. But you are quick to receive 70% of the money raised from the Nigerian breweries and the brewing of alcoholic beverages in Southwest. So all those things are coming up strongly. If you ask me again, when you put it 1 to 10 on the dynamics of cohesion as a strong nation, we are scoring 0 as a strong nation.
Wow.
When you look at the economy or the social or the political, we score 0 at the strong. But at the weak, we are able to score 3 points over 10 and 2 points here and there. And now that we are now under the failed category, we still have the green light. We are now scoring 1 in just a few of the multivariate issues that you are dealing with, and in some cases you are scoring minus. So you are already moving into the dangerous water of collapsing. And this kind of alarm is to help us wake up. It's a wake-up call. So it is wrong of the governance information management system to disparage the early warning report. It is an opportunity for us to say, okay, wait a minute, we need to now have a national dialogue. You say, oh, we've had some reports. Then you need to bring out a government white paper on some of those things and begin to implement. That's the way to go, sir.
Thank you very much. Barrister Ikeazo Akariwe, I'll be glad if you can intervene. Just unmute yourself, and so that you can be, I want you to be part of this conversation from a legal point of view, as someone who is highly steeped in law and who has played civic, significant role. Now, Yomi Martins is saying, are we saying Nigeria is a failed state? And maybe you're also going to take that. I'm not sure. I should be the one to answer that. From all the analysis by Elder Kunle Fagbemi. Barrister Ikeazo Akariwe, are you there? Can you unmute? Let's have your intervention.
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Mr. Tunde Ojo, and the Touchstone Sustainability Series and Touchstone Television.
Thank you.
To answer your question specifically, Nigeria is a failed state surviving on the grace of God. And the grace of God has been manifest in oil. So the proceeds of the petroleum has given us a semblance of life. Besides, Nigeria is also surviving on the incredible resourcefulness of many of its peoples. So that, like Babangida once said, when he was the military head of state, that the economy of Nigeria surprises him that it has not collapsed. As far back as that time, that the resilience of the Nigerian economy was very surprising to him, but that they have discovered that there is an underground economy which sustains the economy. So there is a major unbanked economy, the buying and selling that's going on, and the extended family system, which has stopped many people from falling into dereliction. All that has given us a semblance of life.
Wow.
Destitution just prevented people from falling into destitution. Now, but to come out of this failed state syndrome, it's not difficult. And I would add very quickly that, as a matter of fact, there was no need for us to fall into a failed state status. From all the indices referred to by Elder Kunle, Fagbemi, it's clear that that's what we are, but there was no need for it. And we are still recoverable. We're not yet at the Somalia situation, and may we never get there.
Amen.
And we can be recovered by restructuring the country by a form of fiscal federalism. First of all, the states are too many, and all but one or two of the states cannot sustain themselves. Apart from Lagos State, maybe one or two other states. Other states depend on the handout from the center. That's the perfect definition of a unitary state. And I would suggest that, impracticable as it sounds, we need to go back to a reduced number of states. I have said to accommodate all the tendencies, maybe not more than 12. And every state manages her own resources. If this happens, Nigeria will become like China. Where Shanghai is central to the others began to try to catch up with her. India also does something like that. But my perfect idea is the UK. I describe the UK as a confederation, Great Britain, I mean. You have Scotland, you have Wales, you have manages or runs about 4 or 5 things: defense and foreign affairs, the currency, and 1 or 2 other things. Basically, the oil found in the North Sea belongs to Scotland, and Scotland makes her contributions to the central government in London. Gordon Brown, who was once Prime Minister of the UK not too many years ago, comes from Scotland. And I believe that is what the First Republic Constitution was about, that the British actually modeled it after their own nation, realizing that Nigeria was a nation of many nationalities, especially many major nationalities. I doubt that there's any nation in the world where you have within the borders, apart from Nigeria, as many as 20-something million citizens belonging to, or maybe I should go by way of the percentage. For example, the Igbo, arguably, perhaps a 6th or 7th of the population of Nigeria. The Yoruba are about the 6th or 7th of the population of Nigeria. The Hausa are probably about a 5th. And then you can go on and on. Minority ethnic groups like the Ijaws and the Chiefs are more in population than entire nations like Norway, Finland, Sweden. The populations of some ethnic nationalities we call minority are more than some of the nations in Europe. And you have all of us within a border, within a country. I don't think there's any other nation with the sheer numbers or percentage of ethnic nationality million. The Yoruba are certainly more than 32 million, and Ghana is a country independent. So when you look at the situation, you realize that we cannot continue functioning as a unitary state. The military bequeathed a unitary state for us, structured on their command structure. The command structure is a unitary military. So they created states and we are run as a unitary state. And this is the major reason we are failing. I mean, there are other reasons: corruption, incompetence, ineptitude at the governmental level. But if the country were to be restructured and Abuja was to be made less humongous in power, if the powers of the center were reduced, I tell you, the federating units will begin to excel. Send down the powers to the federating units, they will begin to excel. Strengthen the local government system, they will begin to excel. And when Lagos federating units excels, then perhaps Enugu federating units will be inspired, or your federating unit will be inspired to follow the footsteps of Lagos. And but as it is, everybody looks up to the center. And if a weak leader, if an incompetent leader happens to be running Abuja, then the whole country will be affected by his incompetence. That, I think, is the major reason we are at the precipice, about to fall off into the abyss, but for the grace of God.
Thank you very much, Barrister Ikeazo Akariwe. I'm going to ask the last question so that we can wrap this up. I want you to, what's your prognosis? What's your prognosis? And then I want Elder Ayokoli Fagbemi also to give us his prognosis. Do you think the government, as currently constituted, this administration, will agree to restructuring? What you see as
Well, I just lost audio. I hope I am not speaking while you are speaking. Okay, I have looked at the participants. I'm the only one speaking. Okay, and I hope everybody is hearing me. But the prognosis for me is that this government is going to agree on a form of restructuring which satisfies nobody but itself. They're going to shove a form of restructuring down our throats. They're going to say we have restructured and nobody will be satisfied, and there's going to be more agitation. Except the international community steps in, I believe this government is very beholden to Britain, and I believe that Britain seems to be more comfortable with a part of the country ruling Nigeria, but I may be wrong. And I also believe that Britain is going to realize sooner than later, Britain and France, that an implosion of Nigeria will sink the whole of West Africa. An implosion of Nigeria, let's assume there are 150 million people living in Nigeria. Let's assume 50 million Nigerians are already outside. If Nigeria implodes, West Africa will sink. The refugee crisis will be unmanageable. And so it is in their interest to influence the government not to be afraid and to do the right thing and separate us a little. Move the 4 wives of the polygamists, move them into 4 different houses within the compound, instead of leaving them all in the same house, same building, where they fight themselves every day. That is restructuring. Let us build houses and let the wives move out with their children, and they'll have peace. I am done, but I don't hear anybody speaking again.
Thank you very much, Barrister Ike Akariwe. I'm very grateful for the wonderful submissions that you have been able to bring to bear. It has helped to underscore some of the points I was trying to explain. And again, to help us appreciate the fact that we want to navigate carefully for those of us who don't like to use the binary posture. And that is why we are saying scientifically, Nigeria is a failed state. And I'm very grateful that you presented the fact that divinely we have survived primarily because when things are getting out of hand, the macroeconomic indicators will suddenly change because things will happen that will show up the price of petroleum at the international market, and we will have a windfall and we will come out of it in a little sense. And then the social safety nets that we have as a country is working. That exactly is what is saving us. If not for the social safety nets, by now we would have had some very terrible challenges on our hand. The second thing that is working for us has more to do with the fact that the food security crisis has not escalated. By the time the criminal encroachment and trespass on farmlands begin to take a negative toll if we do not redress these nomadic herdsmen related security challenges, we are going to have crisis on our hands. Yes, when you look at some areas of our resilience, we've been able to overcome. I agree with your submission, sir, that we will end up restructuring in one form or the other. And that restructuring, we need it like yesterday. The constitutional review that is to take place in this 9th Assembly, they must rise up to the occasion. We cannot afford not to take into cognizance and consideration some of the strong views and opinions that they have. Because already we are factionalized, we must mend fences. For us to mend fences, like you have used the analogy of 4 wives. No wife wants to leave a marital home, and no man wants to truly divorce. It is just unfortunate that some misunderstandings do occur. And when they see that they now have an opportunity to have a breather, they have their own accommodation separate from the others, they will stop disturbing any issue that will raise up crisis again. We need to have a confederal arrangement, as it were. We need to encourage ourselves to begin to do the needful of ensuring that every form of unitarism that we are practicing in Nigeria must be brought to an end. Thank you.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, hello. We hear you now.
Yeah, I'm extremely sorry. I had problem with my Wi-Fi. Sorry. Are you done?
Yes, sir, I've responded. I'm done, sir.
Oh, okay. I want to say a big thank you. Extremely sorry. I have about 3 sources of data, and in spite of that, I still experience failure. One is a fiber optics option. With still experience downturn. I want to say a very big thank you to all the participants for this very robust conversation, particularly our distinguished guest, Elder Kunle Fagbemi. Thank you for your analysis, your insights, and we all pray that our government is going to look ahead and look at the options that we have x-rayed and analyzed in a multivariate manner, and so that we can have a country that is moving forward. Once again, I say a huge, can you hear me?
Very much for having
Yes, we hear you. We hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to say I'm extremely sorry for the downtime. And I look forward to, we all pray and look forward to a country where the right things will be done so that we can have a country where we not only have physical security, there will be, food security, without which we cannot have progress. Without peace, there's no progress, just like we have, we've dimensioned. And I want to say a huge thank you to all the participants. I don't want to start mentioning names because of our time. And let's look forward to next Saturday when we come your way again and we look at another topic towards running sustainable businesses and benefiting from the sovereign state called Nigeria in peace and security. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I say God bless you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you can unmute, we can say you know, maybe for the next 5 minutes, we can just interact before we bring this totally to an end. That is what we call the after party interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Kunle, Elder Ayokunle Fagbemi. Thank you very much for the brilliant submission.
Brokizo, thank you for your most analysis.
Your submission is very robust. The challenge I have about Nigerian restructuring has always been, how do we that is going to take us back?
It's not the issue of this. Nigeria is the rich state, not.
In the states, will the existing legislators allow themselves to be legislated out? Will the states be able to operate the main question that I believe maybe at the next time we will be able to talk about? Thank you very much, Elder. Grateful.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. I think we get.
My parting note is to plead with people not to see the scientific label as an indictment. It is not an indictment. It is just an opportunity to face reality, and from the reality we start working towards solution. For those of us who before now were not taking agriculture serious, it's an opportunity for us to invest in agriculture. For those of us who are still tenants, it's an opportunity for us to begin to realize that we need to have a house of our own, no matter how small. It's an house of how small. And you don't need to go and stay in one eyebrow place. The moment you remove paying rent from you, you are already moving in the right direction. I thank you very much for this. We are hoping that Nigeria can migrate back. We are hoping that Nigeria can migrate back to being a strong state. Thank you.
We bring this to an end. Have a lovely weekend. God bless you.
Thank you.